Hello, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your presence. We have such a beautiful day, sunny day outside, right? And inspired by the analogy and of the arara, he the arara feeds from others' food. Let's see the market demand, the offer. We want to know about this for this market. We have big players from the demand side. We have Banco do Brasil and Petrobras present in this panel, and important players on the offer side, Carbonext, which is a leading company in natural carbon, which is also a leading company. The first company in Americas to certify an regenerative agriculture project, in one of the first in the world. Without further ado, I'll be creating a dynamic for this panel, and I'm going to create the dynamic of the offer and the demand. First, we'll hear the demand companies. They will talk about the perspectives of the market, their goals, their aspirations, and also they will be talking about the partnerships they have been doing with the market. Then we'll be talking about the offer. I hope we have time to have two rounds of questions with the panelists and then a Q&A session for the audience. We want you guys, you, the audience, to participate in this dialogue because you are a qualified audience. It's important for us that you participate with your questions and comments. Let's start with Leonardo Nita. He's a manager of carbon and energy solutions for Banco do Brasil. Leonardo, tell us, what is your perspective on the market? What Banco do Brasil is finding now, and what are you looking for now? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation for this panel. As a bank, we have two pillars. We develop projects there in partnership with Natural Carbon and Carbonext. And we have the other side, which is the finance or the investors side, that will purchase the carbon credits for the offset and for the clients. We have a proprietary desk, and we'll be offering carbon credits for all the investors and financiers of carbon credits. Let's talk about the perspective for the market. We have been talking, well, actually, I was talking to Alexandre about the LM market, regenerative, and we have talked about conservation, that we have talked about that in the past, the red plus, and at some point we diversified and we started considering other segments from the perspective of the developers and buyers. We started to understand the risks. The last panel talked about the challenges, the red. Then we started to see the biggest added value that is aligned to the profile of the bank. Traditionally, the bank supports the agribusiness in Brazil, and we started to support the projects and taking a closer look to them. The LLM as well, but our biggest one are the credits for recovery of degraded areas. And this week we have an offer of the equity investors. We'll have the result in about 10 days. Christina maybe knows what's going to happen best. But we place the offer and we believe in the potential of the financing for restoration of degraded areas, generating carbon credits. And the bank will have the role of facilitating that. We'll be looking for good developers and good projects for sure. In the market last year, the voluntary market, since last year, we see some drop. But we believe that this is temporary. We believe that this will improve soon, especially with new technologies. And with new technologies working on different carbon projects. You mentioned that natural carbon is the first registered project. In this way, we have a lot of interest in this agenda promoting the acquisition, the sale, and we know that the price is more of a premium market in comparison to other markets. The other markets, they have lower prices, and our perspective is very positive, considering all the perspectives, the demand and the offer. I've talked this week to an investor of the automotive sector in an European company, and they asked us, well, very nice. You've been talking about ALM, and we are interested on that, but it was an agenda more limited to reforestation. Now we can see the new perspective you are showing, and we can see that in a good perspective. So our biggest bet is the carbon credit. Of course, we can debate a little bit more on what are the features of the project, how can we develop that, and I guess you guys will be able to talk better about that.
Great. Where Petrobras is looking at on this moment, naming products and then deliver it. Good afternoon. First of all, thanks for the invitation. A great space for Petrobras to be here. How do we see the market? Thank you for the invitation. We should talk in a quick way. When we look from this point of view from Petrobras, the company see in the energetic transition commitment and opportunities. We come from that comparing everything since 2015. When we look at that, we have many commitments. I'm not going in depth with it. Net zero 2015, no growth of its operational emissions. We have many commitments here that is very important. We see here opportunity as well. We see is in the business plan 10 billion of not only emissions. We are talking about the company is working on increasing the diesel and other studies that we renewable many kinds of byproducts, and I can have to talk about the opportunities, not going into details of all renewable energies on CCS, which is the capture of storage of carbon. Petrobras already has the biggest project around the world on CCS. We're going to get to 80 million tons of carbon sequestrated and on pre-salt offshore. Where the credit come in it? We all know it. We have to repeat it. We need to reinforce that. Credit is also complementary. We have to recognize our failure, not reducing our emissions. So how can we compensate emissions, and how we have two ways of using credit, doing credit, neutralization of products. We supply spodumene petrol, which is net zero. From its production to its delivery, is a neutralized petrol throughout compensation or operational compensation as well. Now in voluntary market at the moment, if in the future regulated. And Petrobras focus on nature-based NBS solutions. We are not close to have approach on other methodologies. I would say the commercial aspect on NBS and how. And this talks to the Brazilian potential, how we represent that. Petrobras sees that working. NBS it brings some very interesting aspects connected to that. Petrobras wants to work in this market, understand challenge of integrity. We want to be part of this challenge, develop this market, taking on the risk that each contribution we do, each contribution is positive, helping to develop the market. We're talking about development. Carbonext is going through that. I have thanks for the invitation. First of all, I would like to thank Julie, Carla, and Anna, who is having vacation, who organized this this congress. I am able to follow the work of the alliance. First of all, I would like to. We are very grateful to the work Banco do Brasil is putting in the market. It's not only talk. You not only talk the talk, you walk the walk. It's the most agile bank in Brazil on carbon market. Have the biggest portfolio. Have many kinds of carbon projects. Being part of this, have many developers. Have financing outside Brazil. In Brazil, you play a very important role for the market. Petrobras is not behind. With Shell as well. Shell as a partner is very important in the market, but Petrobras has a podium petrol, gas. This is a market that we need to support well. I like to see on those panels, we know each other here for such a long time, and about all these discussions, we're talking about regulation. It catches my attention how things connect to different themes. We see the detail from the about the detail in the detail. I'm not the one who is taking care of thinking about regulation. I want to put projects walking, running, working. Plinio, when I see him talking, I love to see him. We are there in the alliance. We are having our arguments, and it's so impressive when you see people talking well. And this is going on really good. I have some colleagues from college here building this legal framework. We still are behind in this market, and Vera was behind the market, and now we saw ERS, Chimbo. We are bringing more innovative solutions for the market. Isometrics, I know some groups that are moving well to do things. We try to develop the market. The market is not growing. The market is being structured. We are in the beginning of this market. We have all these pillars in the market now being accepted. We have no methodology. We have no methodology being. We are understanding the implementation of these strategies. This market is still in this development phase, And when we bring that to my expertise, that's being business model for that, we still more even behind it. We exchange facts here, and when we look at how a carbon project happens, is so big the quantity of answers we don't have. I will have to talk about the elephant in the room. We have the methodologies to build the scope of what we can do, but we don't know how to do it. And each carbon project has a shape, what put the buyers in a very uncomfortable situation. When you look at my project, 500 pages here. We have no leakage in this, we don't have this and that. How can be a journey of a product? It's horrible. We need to have this regulated, guaranteeing all those concepts and aspects that being discussed and discussed and discussed, being consolidated and so on. But I cannot buy a house and people give me the design and ask me, look, check if the work of the engineer is right. If the I'm saying that not criticizing the infrastructure. We are still in this moment of infrastructure. We are now establishing infrastructure, and then we're going to talk product later. We want to build market solutions that are feasible in the best way possible. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but I think went over my 5 minutes. Great for helping my work. Alexandre, tell us about this win. How was to certify the first ALM project? Thank you, Lourival. I would like to thank Alliance for the invitation. ALM here it's nice to talk about ALM. It's a new market being created. This whole market, carbon market scope. Carbonext, thank you for the invitation as well. A very important point on the other certificators that registered Novera and natural carbon. We are the first company in the Americas, the second in around the world to have a project registered with carbon credit emissions. We had other projects around the world. I believe Novera, we have 6 or 7 other projects around the world. One in Mexico, one in Paraguay and Argentina, South Africa, which were certified as projects, but it did not did the emissions of its credits different than the emission of red. We did, that's a win. Logically, we are very proud with this win, having this project approved in Brazil, but it's only a natural carbon conquest. It's not only for natural carbon, it's for the whole market as a whole. ALM, for the Brazilian ALM, but also for the other developers as well. Other ALM developers that are here that believed that it is possible to have a carbon credit on regenerative agriculture. We talked a lot about this subject the last years, and the whole process we went through certifying that, checking the parameters for that. We are doing that more than 3.5 years, where we delivered this project and this company. The methodology VMM 0042 is a new methodology that was created 5 years ago as a draft, and it was only homologated 2 years ago. And our company is developing that since it was in draft, and had the pleasure to be one of the pioneers in this journey. It was said here about the maturity of the market, how Red Plus is already 10 to 20 years in the market. We had the advantage to learn also through pain everything that was done before and a lot of what was done in other methodologies. The approval process was extra hard because we were one of the first to start in doing that. Everything was new for Vera as well, who was just homologated a certification, new certification, a new methodology. It was new for the VVBs that never did something audit ALM. We had the inclusion on the EMMs, the audits of the methodologies of certification in this process. In parallel to that, the whole process has been discussed here from all of the integrity of this discussion. How can we improve the methodologies? On the approval of our project, we had a huge scrutiny, precision on the registry of this project. For us was pretty much learning by doing on the VP, but when we got to the final register on the Vera, we had a huge scrutiny on the process. We were frustrated because it was a small, low process.
But after the process actually is effective, registered, you can see that everything that is done and everything that we developers of projects of LLM are doing, we are in the right path. Because the potential of this ALM market is huge, and we know that. Now it's important to gain maturity for the new methodology, and also for all the ones participating in the ecosystem. They need to understand this in a cohesive way, remove the barriers. I can see some criticism in terms of Brazil having an exclusive methodology. I honestly am against that. Methodology is a protocol that we need to follow. What we need to do in this methodology and protocol that can be used worldwide, and natural carbon did in terms of tropicalization was the quantification of the soil in the Brazilian agriculture. We need to do that and transform that into a tropical agriculture. But we need to be cohesive, we need to remove barriers, and not inventing new problems so that we need new solutions for them. Leonardo, what improvements Banco do Brasil would like to see in these products? Luciano was great when he talked about the structuring stage of that we are restructuring the market right now. I come from the variable and fixed income market. I have trained in other markets. In this market that I mentioned, things are more clear because it started in the past. The rules are well established, the resources, the tools are established. We have teams of analysts doing the assessments. You can just call them and ask a question. For the carbon, we are still structuring. First, the projects, the ARR projects are project financing projects. It's not standardized, but some standards can be established to speed up the process. Energy financing, when it started back in the past, 2004, 2005, a lot of guarantees were demanded, collaterals, um, corporative collaterals. But now we have a renewable project that is more simple because it comes from a simple market, sometimes a small amount for the bid to acquire the transmission line. I'm not going to be too technical, but what I mean by that is we can have a path, an easier path on how to develop a carbon credit project. And this is more consolidated in the market now, not only in the developer's side, but the buyer's side. They need to know what they're buying. Luciano said you are restructuring, but what about the product? We have insurance, several types of coverages involved, but a standard is followed. And the insurer that covers my vehicle offers this and that coverage, and you can demand from the insurers, what do you actually want. Now I'll have to have a list to evaluate the projects in the market so that my team, the treasury, can approve I can buy this or not. Things are dynamic because sometimes a process took too long, the person solved by themselves, or another person assumed the project, a more experienced professional maybe. We need to understand the certifier, the integrity, the buyer, every aspects of the project should be analyzed. If you have a more structured one, of course, the market is evolving and it's a slow and painful process. I guess now we need the private credit, we have the ratings, it's the first step. Some carbon credits, they already have their ratings. We can have an analysis standard. Some are structuring to have a platform. It's a place where I can check all the credits I have because it's divided by several certifiers. And we need to find the best ones. Like this one works this way and the other one offers this. In the market, we have a global standard, as commented by Luciano, of LAM, that maybe we don't have to make any adjustments or adjust in the calculation only, not the methodology itself. But in an integrated way, I think when things are more connected, then we can have it. What I miss when I buy carbon credits is information. And the clients, especially, they want the bank to tell them. A client asked me, "Can I buy this? Is it risky or something like that?" And I said, "Well, the balance sheet of this company is okay, good enough. They had some problems, but it's good enough. We had some analysis conducted, but it met it matched with the client and it met the requirements of the client, and that's what we need for the carbon market." What about the developers, the ones on the side of the offer? How can they prove? Yeah, hard question. I would start by answering that Petrobras currently approaches the market in an objective way. We have the spot market that could be long and medium term partnerships with the developers. But the spot market is not an ideal market, especially in high volumes. I think it should be a more complementary market. But we have the issued credits, and we need an internal diligent process. It's a three-layer process. The first layer, we check certifications, the minimum ratings from some agencies, and we have that process, the process that the issued credits will go through. The second layer is a diligence. every time we execute, we understand the complexities of the projects. And the third layer would be a more reactive one, a mitigative one, covering the agreements, the certifiers. Because if we have a problem, then we have the third layer to protect. When we talk about medium and long term partnerships, it's more difficult, it's more challenging. Petrobras recently launched launched the Pro Forest. It's not a bid, yeah, it's just a public notice. But in partnership with BNDES, it encourages the partnership market with acquisition of credits and BNDES with the financing and reforesting of native forest in the Amazon region. This architecture is very interesting. This is not the only initiative. We want to have partnerships of developed projects. And I normally say that Petrobras is a company with an operational bias that is very strong. And also projects in other areas. I have been working there for 21 years. In 20 years, I've been working in oil and gas and engineering, and the last year in the carbon market. I'm the person here for sure that understands the least about this market. But I understand a lot of engineering because of my background, the way we see the projects, the way we analyze them. This is a challenge. The challenge that I see now is that sometimes we talk about integrity and quality of a project, but this is so subjective, don't you think? When you have a partnership with a developer, you're not going to be doing diligence 6 months after 6 months to see what happens. It's costly, it's hard work. So, what am I actually following up with the project? What are the KPIs of the projects? This is very well established when I leave the area of engineering and oil, refinery. Now, in this market, I see the challenge. It's a work that we do together with developers and buyers, buying this. Um, Actually, this is an important point. And also the technological support. I was very surprised with the panels I saw in the conference. Some of them they offer technologies to measure the carbon capture. I didn't know we were so advanced on that. And I also see opportunities of technological support. I used to see that in my areas where I worked before, the background areas. I think we can evolve a lot and help the market mature. And Petrobras is very much interested in this kind of partnership. And we have been working more to the spot market currently. Yeah, Tatiana, you have a story on natural carbon and LR. My question is to Luciano. How can you improve RED to meet the expectations? And what is the role of the other aspects in the Carbonext strategy? Well, aligned to the efficient business models to address the pain points of the buyers, Carbonext is trying to bring to the level of the operation most of efficiency we can. When I said that most of the answers we that we don't have the answers for this project, it is because we don't have the limit of the role of the developer. I'm going to talk about the RED project, but it's the same for every kind of project. Where is the developer actually involved? How it is involved? Will they dig the well? Will they the well actually? Will they build the schools in the communities? We don't know, and these limits are not given by the project, the methodology will provide the baseline, and we have to design what is going to happen. Then the project will design an intervention project and prove that the intervention will create change for the future. And you build that based on the theory of change. You have a guiding principle, and then you have the steps to achieve what you want. Another question: what about this forest? Will the forest be like this 30 years from now? Nobody will go in. We are going to trade timber or not. We have so many questions unanswered. And we are talking about things like, wow, projects are amazing, everything is amazing, we need to buy, we need to get involved. But we have important data that provides integrity and legitimacy for the project. But we need to address the actual questions, the good questions that should be answered about the projects. We are trying to do the following. First, defining the limits. What is the role of the developer? So defining clear limits. In any company that is looking for scale and efficiency, they need to have standardized projects, replicable projects, and the most important part of that is to be able to embark include more technology. Well, AI is everywhere in the world, and we are not talking about this kind of technology. I'm not talking about MRV technology because we talk about that a lot. I'm talking about collecting data. The carbon projects, they collect data. It's essentially management of data. How are we collecting data from the communities?
The interference is only for me. How do you collect this data? How to collect the data from bioeconomy? Come in a trap, disconnect algorithm that can read that. Is that enough? So you touch to someone here. I can map everything. I can give you the report on the biodiversity. These things are not consolidated or classified yet. We don't have this standardized to have a good project. You go to projects come ALM, have more standardized solutions. By construction is more standardized, which is great. But even though we can dig a meter, and some people here talk about 30 centimeters. We don't have the answers. We need to move forward quickly to have solutions from the execution, development of project, so we can consolidate that better, standardize better, find the limits. I don't want to start talking about each community is a place, each community is a different project, but to have to standardize ways to deal with a more efficient way with those projects. The developer needs a expert to know how to deal with the community. That's a very complex problem. It's not an economical sector. It's how do we develop this, standardize those limits and create standardized ways to impact the onboard technology. This is fundamental for the market and to give to you buyers clarity and transparency of what is happening. Develop a project with 500 pages is not standardized. How can you compare projects? How can you compare two projects of 500 pages? We have to standardize that. We have to have a look at the performance. We can give information about the projects in real time. We have to limit our activities. You have to bring standards for those activities. Put everything in real time on our sheets. Which were the activities on that week? According to this community, according to the biodiversity, climate. How can we avoid invasion in Amazon? We need that clearly, very clearly, and bring transparency and credibility for the market. I went a little bit abroad. But about the other front, we did a partnership with Natural Carbon. We are following their work a long time. They are our partners. We are investors of Carbonext, Alexandre Leite and his team, Felipe and Márcio, who are here. They did a great work on the ALM market and the modeling. Avoid necessity to measure, remeasure. So we measure, model, and then later we measure again. We have this partnership. We have projects on the oven about ARR. We have to create those models for ARR projects with revenue, profitable. I'm going to give you the money. We don't have working capital for that. So we can break our companies with that. We can bankrupt them. We have to ARR. They're going to buy those areas. We need to move forward, develop, to make these ARR projects, make them sustainable. And first hand, we bought important participation in Mangrove Tech, Mang Tech. It was developed by Link's team that did yesterday for TOTS. It's a very successful team on ARP. Great team in SaaS. A great team. They did a great work, solid work. They did build a platform for decarbonization programs. We did this investment, and now we don't have a name yet, but the platform, the group, we are doing inventory of emissions, implementing decarbonization plans, developing RED programs in AR and reforestation, and all these aspects on the client journey. And very important second point that we are bringing here this experience for human tech to digitalize as much as possible the development of the carbon projects. With that, we hope to bring that to the platform, to communicate in a clear way how these projects are being proposed, so we can make this all easier. Please think about the final comments, because Alexandre is going to conclude here and telling us what is the potential for regenerative agriculture anchored on the most dynamic sector of our economy. Sure, the potential for regenerative agriculture is huge. The size of the Brazilian agriculture is impressive. If you just look at the numbers of what is possible to do on ARM, we have to look at the areas of pastures and degraded areas. We need a baseline for that to start having change for regenerative agriculture. What you can do in agricultural land on conventional agriculture now is limited, and the baseline starting a higher level. Eventually, we don't have the financial return for the developer and the farmer. We should go beyond those pastures and degraded areas because it's already permanent. Today we talk about at ABC that the government has how to show 40 millions of hectares that degraded areas in Brazil. Beyond that, we have 70 million of hectares of pasture. If you add both of them, let's say 100 million of hectares. It's a huge number. If you average those numbers on the how regenerative agriculture can impact, creating even 2 tons by hectare, and when you add forest and cattle farming, and you bring agriculture that has 2 harvests a year in between this vegetation, with tilt farming, Again, we have 1.5 to 2.5 credits by hectare. Multiply that by 100 million, have 200 million of credits yearly, only from ALM. If you do that with the whole agricultural industry, and that's not enough to develop the market. As Renato said, from Petrobras, we talk about partnerships. We don't believe carbon market can live from the sporadic market. Cannot survive from the spot market. It's not fair. The market demands on LMM and other aspects. The landowner, they need a commitment for 40 years. You need to sign a contract for 40 years. And this contract can go until 100 years. Let's sign a contract for 40 years. But so when are you going to sell my carbon credit? In 2 or 3 years. And how much? How much is the price? I don't know. I have to see this and that. It's important that the other side of at the table come with this commitment. It's not to forward some money. No problem with forwarding some money. But at the other side of the table, we need the interest to build partnerships where we have the commitment on both sides. If this doesn't work, the market is not going to develop. Thank you very much for your opinions, your speeches. We have now 14 minutes and 15 seconds for working at radio, and time for me is sacred. Let's see if our audience has comments, questions, and contributions. Have someone there in the middle of the corridor with a microphone. If anyone want, please raise your hand. Please, your name and where you work. Please stand up to be easy for us, for the person with the microphone to see who wants to participate. Hello, good afternoon. They made me stand up. My question is, what's your name? And what do you do? Mariana Villanova. I'm a master in international law and researching the carbon market. My question is for Leonardo. I would like to know how the programs for capture and storage of carbon at Petrobras are developing, what they state now, and which are the perspectives for the next years. How do you want to use it now with the regulated market? Thank you. Great question. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify that aspect. I talked a little bit about the offshore operation we have. It's the biggest offshore operation around the world. But there is a very interesting characteristic in that. We have some incoming. When you put CO2 in the reservoir, you increase the production of oil, petrol. From the operational point of view, we need to remember that we have this economical framework to make this happen, to work. When we look at the regulated market, what Petrobras want to do is to take this experience to offer that to the market, to increase its own emission. Petrobras has today projects in study place, in a designing phase. And to understand how this is going to work with a regulated market is very complex, because of CCS make this viable. We need to have scale. We need to build hubs. We have a pilot project It might happen is very well advanced in the north of the state of Rio. And have studies for hubs at Espírito Santo, São Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro, and Bahia as well. The capacity is big capacities to capture some CO2 and green gases from cement industry and other industries. We believe in this market. Believe that the regulated market can leverage this industry and this market for CCS. Thank you, Leo. Another participation. If you please stand up and identify yourself.
Well, you can come here. Can you see our colleague wearing a white t-shirt? They're holding the microphone, so those who would like to stand in the line and ask the questions there. Say your name, please, and where you work. My name is Gabriel Yunis. We develop projects. My question is for Alexander. In the case of cattle raising, how can we deal with the emission of methane and fermentation? Because producers, when they adopt regenerative and rotation, they also will have rotation of animals. So it's not, we need to understand that. Thank you for the question. I don't know if I'm the right person to answer, but our focus today is on the ALM in regenerative agriculture and not in the rotation pasture for the cattle raising industry. We work with modeling and quantification through modeling biogeochemical for regenerative agriculture, and in the etheric and in I have my partner, the Felipe is right here in the front. After the end, you can talk to him. He will be able to answer better to this question. Amazing. Yeah, we are here to do networking and talk. Who else would like to ask a question? You can come close to the stage, the white t-shirt person holding the microphone. No participation? Okay, let's continue. We have 8 minutes. Luciano, what do you think? Where is this market going? What are the next steps? Thank you for the question. Well, looking for efficiency, we'll see the costs of generating carbon credit reducing and making feasible large-scale projects, because the red carbon credit you need $6 to $10. It's costly. Several projects you have boats, airplanes, so it's costly. The projects, and as new methodologies are pointing out, they will be more integrated, and we call them landscapes because they are integrating the planted forest, conservated forest, and this way it will be very efficient. This is more a wishful thinking, but I can see that we have an evolution on this matter. Yeah, well, Alexander said that this market doesn't support only by itself. It needs partnership. Leonardo Nita, Banco do Brasil already has partnerships, so is this the way to go? Currently, we are structuring that. We are talking about that. And the projects, firstly, they are developed in the bank. But of course, we can have this in other projects. We've been talking to the World Bank to have a liquidity fund. And we have been talking about that. Depending on the size of the fund, maybe we don't have credit enough to buy on spot, which is a challenge Petrobras is going to face, even more than we are. But we maybe we'll have a part of the capital as an equity of the project and helping with reforestation, something like that, having a long term agreement. We've been talking to other companies and sectors, and they've been concerned as well because after 2030, the regulated market will start. Where the prices are going? Well, right now, the prices are kind of shy, I would put it this way, because of everything that happened in the market. But what about when things are actually working? What about when the market accelerates? The price will be from 15 to 30, depending on the methodology, of course. They are starting to be interested. And what about if I start as an off-taker? What about my own capital for the equity project? Maybe can I mitigate or having an option? We are starting discussions like that, but we still have other aspects to consider before. Even the standardization that I mentioned, not 100% saying that a project is similar to the other. It's not. They're not equal. We have the rights of being able to say, well, this option will have this price. In 2020, 2035, we'll have a different price. We have been discussing that more intensively in the bank to define things like this. We'll have a conversation, a meeting with the bank board to define that. We are redefining that to the carbon market. The market is changing, so we need to have maybe an option of just developing or participating. If we need a partner, we need to trust the partner. Otherwise, the partnership will not be good. And Leo will be talking about Pro Forest project. You are going to be a protagonist in the project, in the development of that. Financial instruments, they have you have a participation, you may become an entrepreneur, developer of projects, maybe is this the path? We don't have the answer, but we are considering the alternatives. I quickly went over this when I commented, but I totally agree with that. The offer will not be able to uphold in the market because you need partnerships with developers, but we have our public commitments to reduction. We cannot depend on a spot market. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 years. We don't know whether the volume will be available. We have operational goals and targets. Both the offer and the demand, they want to know about this. Yes, we need to follow up the project. We have some uncertainties that need to be addressed. It's like taking a commitment of developing a project with a developer that will probably generate credits from 5 years from now with reforestation for 30, 15 years. How will this credit work in 2038, 2040? Petrobras has been going further into this type of discussions, trying to understand the market. How do we create the mechanisms? For the forest, Petrobras gave a public consultation based on an agreement to understand what is going to happen, what kind of safety would be necessary, and soon we'll have a bidding process, a public notice on the forest. But there are so many challenges to tie up in the medium and long term. Both sides want that. This is a conversion point we have. Alexander, what does it represent to the agribusiness? What is that contribution to the sustainability of agribusiness? When we come to a conference like that, we see two of the main buyers in the country. If we look to the audience, we miss the buyers of carbon credits. I think we need to have a stronger communication with those people. The second point, and it's a warning actually, the foreign market is very, very strong. They are doing good movements. We don't have answers to all the questions. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but the sectors, they take more risks than others. And let me give you an example that will match the ALM and everything you're talking about. We know that the big techs are the biggest carbon credit buyers in the world, driven by emotion and that. But 2 weeks ago, it was announced that Microsoft bought 2.4 million credits from a ALM project, VM42, from a fertilizers company in the United States. And this project has not even been approved. It's under validation. So there is a confidence abroad that this is going to happen. And everybody is doing red for the future. The previous panels today talking about regulated market and the convergence. I don't know, it's going to be in 2, 5 years, but it's going to happen in different paces and the convergence of doing an offset in the regulated market. This will sure happen. Those who will wait to do that in the future will not find quality projects. Investing that can look a big one, we know it's not so big. We know that for the big companies investing future carbon credits, and they don't need to give money in advance, they will have enough take in 10 years. This is the commitment, this is the type of commitment we need. It is necessary to grow the market. Otherwise, we won't grow the market or create the market. Luciano, you will be ending the panel. How can we have the commitment from the stakeholders? Well, it's a little bit of everything we said in the panel. Leo reinforced the importance of the long-term contracts because they provide stability for the market. We are building the base for the market. This is not a cash generation market. It's not about the long-term agreements. The long-term agreements, they actually bring stability so that the other companies can develop their products and projects. And the market needs some time to have the necessary structures. I just would like to highlight the importance of the role of companies of oil and gas because they are here, right? On stage, Shell is also present. They play a very important role in the purchase of credits. The big techs also are holding the market. They are the ones guaranteeing the demands for the market. And if each one does actually plays their role from the demand side and honoring the commitments of decarbonization, neutralization, all of us that are trying to build the market will be able to follow this path. Yes, thank you for being concise, being transparent, being honest, being open about it. And a round of applause for our panelists.